Goblins. These cruel-hearted, cowardly creatures have been portrayed many times in many ways. This video covers some basic lore, our homebrew D&D perspective, and a deadly low-level encounter for any TTRPG DMs out there watching. Greetings to all the guild members, new viewers, and any DMs watching. I'm Marcel, the Guild Master of TT Tomes. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share the video. Goblins are small, sharp-toothed humanoids standing about 3 to 4 feet tall, averaging about 50 to 60 pounds. They vary in appearance quite drastically sometimes, depending on the region where they're found. Some goblins have green skin, while others have dark, more earth-like tones. The pointiness of their ears can vary just as widely as their skin tones, while some goblins are even known to have tails. The most uniform part about goblin appearance is usually their small size, generally pointed ears, and green to brown skin tone. Now, Smeagol from Lord of the Rings is not a goblin, but he is a good example of what people normally think of when they think of goblins. Often the size of small children, what goblins lack in strength and courage, they make up for in sheer maliciousness and in numbers. Goblins are drawn to dark, desolate, abandoned locations like caverns, fallen castles, and even sewer systems. These dank and filthy places often allow goblins to gather in large numbers. When gathered in masses, it's not uncommon for something bigger, more powerful, and meaner to assert itself as the leader of the craven and fearful goblins. Hobgoblins and bugbears are commonly seen assuming this role. However, evil spellcasters or anything that fits the setting could subjugate goblins. Goblins are generally not hard to scare into submission. Most things are larger and stronger than they are. Goblins fear death above all else, believing the afterlife is entering an eternal servitude of sorts to their evil deity. This is basically being damned to the hells. Goblins tend to move quick for their size. However, a single goblin is no challenge for a basic town guard to dispatch in a fair fight, and goblins do not want to fight anything in a fair fight if they can ever help it. If goblins don't have a clear upper hand, they might just retreat or cower, beg for their lives, while goblins that can see enemies are close to death might draw their blades and charge forward. When goblins have humanoid prisoners, they often torment them endlessly. They find it fun, which often comes from feelings of being bullied by their own superiors. It's like that one boss that hates their own boss, so they become a bigger jerk to their own employees. Goblins can sometimes learn to coexist with certain creatures like rats and wolves. Goblins with solid and regular food sources have the means to care for hordes of rats instead of needing them for food sources. This type of coexistence helps both the creatures and the goblins. The creatures get things like food, shelter, general care, while this gives the goblins options in combat. Wolves act as great mounts, while large swarms of rats can be herded at enemies, while the goblins can stay far away and shoot their bows, then quickly hide. People oftentimes think goblins are dumb, which is true in the sense of if you put them in a town, they oftentimes won't know how to work things like doorknobs, simple contraptions that most people know how to use. But goblins are very clever in the sense of if they see you work the lock, they'll figure it out. If they see you work a mechanism or a contraption or some kind of machine, they can figure out how to work it. If a group of goblins saw humans load, aim, and fire a cannon, that same group of goblins would probably blow themselves up. But the next group of goblins that saw everything most likely would be able to fire the cannon because they saw what to do and saw some good examples of what not to do. It's a trial and error process. People also think goblins are dumb because they have many superstitions that more civilized races might find barbaric or childish. Magic amongst goblins is rare and therefore often misunderstood. Harvesting spellcasters is a common practice for goblins, believing that collecting fingers, blood, and even their tongues can grant powerful magic and protection from magic. Goblins have said that collecting beards from dwarves can shield you from their stout god's wrath. And collecting, with the occasional consumption of elf ears, can extend your own lifespan. Goblin spellcasters are rare, but not unheard of. While most goblin spellcasters tend to be female, with male casters being rare, but not unheard of. The most powerful and revered shamans most often being women in goblin communities and tribes. A typical shaman's magic is much more primal, like a druid's magic, and farther from a wizard's arcane magic. Goblin shamans are going to be the most revered and sought after socially, besides the goblin leaders, and followed by the goblin raiders, those who brave the outside world to bring back new shinies into the lair. Because goblins aren't normally skilled crafters, if they don't go out and steal it, they just won't have it. Which is why they'll grab humanoids. Kinda messed up, but they can be useful or they can be food. Imagine being a captive dwarf, seeing people get dragged off and never brought back. You might boast your mining skills and hope to be put to work digging pitfall defenses or escape tunnels. People say how lazy goblins are and why they have poorly made traps. But they're also evil little supervisors who would love nothing more than to stand over a city dwelling creature as it toils away, still throwing rocks at it. Having captives to build traps, fashion weapons, and do general work can lead to more time for the tribe to, well, become larger. This act is called haunching in Goblin. All the haunching, often refereed by the shamans, can lead to much needed population booms, with goblin pregnancy lasting only about 4 months and them reaching adulthood at a staggering 8 years old. The tribe loses many members due to things like predatory giant owls, territory skirmishes, and whatever else the self-appointed leader has them begrudgingly doing. Before goblins are accepted as adults in their tribe, they oftentimes don't even have names, most goblins being given numbers. And many goblins don't bother learning to count high, which can lead to numbers quickly being repeated, and this leads to children having violent disputes, sometimes deadly. Goblins, being nocturnal creatures, are often emboldened by particularly dark, starless nights. Nights like these can cause them to raid and pillage nearby isolated homes, farms, and other buildings, stealing food, shiny things, cattle, and people. Goblins that are capable fighters tend to return with the best loot, or at least have no challenge taking it from other goblins, securing a higher place in society. Things like books and papers are normally discarded. Goblins normally use tools similar to crude carpenter tools to carve markings into bones to tell their stories. This often leads to many goblins being found carrying assortment of bones, like poorly made wind chimes, each filled with markings that might serve as messages between tribes, military plans, or even personal identification. People caught on raids are normally left alive, if docile enough, to be used as a workforce or even strapped to shields and used as protection during sieges. Goblins, being directed by something more intelligent like a mage, might have a more coordinated offense using goblin foot soldiers. Goblins play it safe in combat unless something scarier is telling them and ordering them. Goblins would love to sit back with a bow while a wolf or a rat rushes their enemies, then hide quickly in between shots to reduce the chance of them being hurt. Rinse and repeat until enemies start to drop precious loot, or until goblins start to die. In that case, they might just run away unless there's something bigger preventing them from running. The most capable goblins are given stealth missions with small squads, often on the backs of giant rats. These small teams of goblins can infiltrate towns through its sewers, opening gates and doors for the nearby tribe hiding, ready to attack. Goblin children separated from their tribes often escape the evil mob mentality. They aim for more than to torment people and collect shinies for power. They often become intrigued with almost everything in their new world and might even take up hobbies like tinkering, alchemy, and more. It's not uncommon for them to feel a sense of tribe with people they spend a great deal of time with, but they're still often viewed with skepticism from other civilized races that don't know them. Those viewed as tribe can often be protected ferociously, and it's not uncommon for goblins to overreact if they perceive the tribe is under attack. Goblins might suggest a practical, although morbid solution to a problem, like innocently suggesting having an enemy dig its own grave, needing to be reminded that's not something civilized people do. Typical goblin tribes and communities form and grow in oftentimes cramped spaces. Cavern systems are one of the most ideal naturally occurring homes for goblins. Because of this mass of goblins in such close proximity, oftentimes nudity is a foreign concept to them, rather being viewed as unarmored or unprepared for a skirmish. Privacy is another ill-grasped concept due to their horde-like lifestyles, but it's definitely understood since they often sneak away from the masses to better look at their shiny possessions. Shiny things often catch goblins' eyes, whether it's coins, jewelry, magic items, and so on. Goblins love collecting shiny and interesting trinkets, gadgets, and contraptions. Looting a goblin can be one of the most random experiences an adventurer can have, quickly finding body parts, jewelry, a yo-yo, and a prosthetic limb. Goblins are mischievous little beings, so property and possessions end up changing ownership quite a bit in a goblin den. If you can't watch your belongings, someone else will. It's a common thing for goblins to train their rats or wolf mounts to bite anyone that comes close or touch their saddlebags. This might allow a goblin to better keep possession of their weapons and armor while sleeping and such. Pickpocketing, mugging, and worse can occur when goblins want what another has. Depending on the tribe and its leaders, these crimes might be handled in different ways. Stealing amongst goblins is a common crime which can often end in a savage beating from the offended party, and possibly even the whole tribe if warranted. Killing another goblin is generally considered an offense against the leader. The leader had 100 soldiers, now they have 99 because you killed one, effectively stealing from the leader. Death would result in 98 soldiers, so punishment often doesn't result in death, but something that would make the goblin wish they were dead, but can still serve in some capacity. If a tribe has too many mouths to feed and has something like a bugbear in charge, property disputes ending in bloodshed may not be thought about too much. This might cause strong social groups or gangs to form, almost like smaller cliques that form a whole tribe. Some group together for protection and extra vigilance to watch belongings like weapons, armors, and shinies, while others gather together to become bigger bullies and collect the best weapons. Socially, goblins tend to follow the most powerful and scariest, whether that is another goblin who can't be easily dispatched, a large hobgoblin or bugbear, or an evil self-appointed spellcaster. Goblins are very resourceful. When they kill enemies, especially city dwellers, they immediately loot the best of their equipment and magic items. Goblins can familiarize themselves with an array of different weapons and use most armor for scrap pieces. It's very common to see a goblin in mismatching armor pieces, almost looking like a junkyard soldier, using a large shoulder guard meant for an orc as a chest plate, or ripping up finely made leather armors to use tailor-fitted pieces to fit their smaller torsos. Some goblins even keep humanoid skulls as helmets once all the food is stripped from it. As far as motivations for these little guys, goblins love hoarding shiny possessions, love having fun, often at other creatures' expense, and want to be in a position of power over others.
This is an encounter that I run for a lot of my low-level groups. Even some of my higher-level groups, I just run goblin swarms instead of individuals. So this is what the whole map looks like, and make sure you start to hide things. And on Roll20 I use the Fog of War, so make sure you handle all of that before you have your players drop. So I've turned on the Fog of War. I have this group of goblins here that is hidden, so I have them on the DM layer, even though Fog of War is on and my players can't see. And we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right is where I have my players drop their tokens when they're ready to enter in on this map. And with the Fog of War, as they make it further in, I will reveal more of the map that they can see. My concern as DM right here is making sure I don't reveal too much and let them see the hidden pathways that are here. The flanking tunnels that these goblins have that they'll be using to get around our players at different points. So I'm making sure that I reveal pretty much just the more visible areas as our players proceed forward. So a quick overview of the players entering in. They come in from the bottom right here, and they're going to, after they deal with this first swarm of rats, maybe a giant rat or two, they're going to have their first choice of which way to go. It looks like a dead end towards their left or the bottom of the map. Make sure that when you reveal this, you try not to reveal the too much behind, and don't reveal the secret flanking tunnels there again. So it looks like a dead end towards the left. They have the pathway ahead of them that looks clear and, well, not inviting, but a wider path ahead of them versus a narrow path where they would have to squeeze through half movement, single file line towards the right or top of the map up here. Back here is where they have a little bit of a goblin sleeping area using piles of rats as warmth, and plenty of flanking tunnels here if these goblins here are alerted of intruders. Nice flanking tunnels here, multiple ways to get around the group. Otherwise, they'll just be there sleeping. And also feel free to change this up if you ever want to switch it up for your own encounters, but this has just been how I've ran it. After dealing with that first encounter here, they might sneak that way, but if your players have a decent passive perception, I like to use passives, I feel like they're underutilized, then they might hear someone, it sounds like a humanoid, in distress towards this direction. If they do head this way, this is the more fun way, I think, as DM. If your players go, they eventually wander into what is the Goblin's human alarm, a human that they have tied up essentially in this dungeon area over here. And I like to narrate it as this person crying, kicking out at these rats that are just like nipping at him. And that's what the goblins keep him here for. If they hear someone conversing with this person, if the goblins nearby in this hiding area here hear people trying to break chains, or hear spells being cast, or hear anything out of the ordinary, that's their whole alarm system over here is this person. That when I run it, normally warrants a surprise round on my people, since these goblins are kind of hiding in wait in these areas that once I reveal this area, I always try not to reveal the hidden flanking tunnels that they have around the map as well. So I'll be revealing the map as they go, and if they end up interacting with this goblin alarm down here, then surprise round from all these goblins that I have here. But let's say maybe you don't like this of someone being tied up down here, or you just don't use it. If our players, or if your players end up ignoring it, if they do wander down this direction, there's gonna be, how I normally narrate it, these bodies here, still in armor, they still look like they have loot and valuables, and a lot of time that's enough for my players to want to loot them, to want to see what they have on them. That again is what these goblins over here lying in wait are waiting for, someone to make noise, either with their human alarm down towards the bottom or their loot alarms to hear the jingling, have bells attached. So if your players go to start looting these bodies, they'll notice that there are like jingle bells attached to the underside of it. The goblins here, that's when I'll bring them over to the token lair and start moving them out of like this area here. I imagine when I designed the map as a small opening as well as down here. Also, if they were to have the players up here in this area with this strange glow and the jingle bell alarms, I also have a giant rock token. Essentially, one goblin can run out, trigger this trap. I normally have the rock fall on that goblin just for like comedic relief in all of this, but bringing over a obstacle that essentially lets our players know that there's no turning back at this point if there is this large rock that is blocking their path or narrated as a cave in. If they came this way, then now they're committed to figuring out another way out and having to make their way essentially the long way through. If your players do get caught down here in the human trap, this is a good bottleneck area here to try and force them into this dead end. Meanwhile, they're also going to be running around trying to get in through this back flanking area as well. So this is one of the best areas the goblins want to trap intruders in. Also up here as well, if they get them trapped in with the boulder, they're going to try and flood the area with rats first. All their rats in through these narrow openings, kind of as softeners to essentially as cannon fodder. So if they have a bunch of adventurers trapped in here with the boulder triggered behind them, first thing that my goblins do is flood the room with rats, and then they'll run in after, especially if they have their rat mounts like I have here. So this has been another thing that I've had for my rats, or for my goblins, is their rat mount. So committing your players to make it further through. I have a cooking area up here. If your players happen to make it through or make it to this area without combat, you could have a goblin here kind of behind this log, maybe like a traitor. If your players are coming through here attacking, maybe there's some loot visible in this area. Over here, there's just a goblin kitchen. There's body humanoid parts laying around. Rats infested around as well, the same rats that they would use to flood the area. And if you're looking at token count here, change that as you need for your players. I've altered this a bit here and there for different groups with different capabilities. If your group is level 5 and up, feel free to add a lot of tokens, because one spirit guardian is gonna completely make numbers irrelevant. A fireball goes off in here and it's gonna clear out most of it. So adjust the amount of tokens as you see fit or as needed. Same with the boss. I'll normally run with maybe a goblin spellcaster or a couple of bugbears, but there's a bit of a boss area here, a bit of a throne room of sorts. You'll see that there are these red crystals here in both rooms. I've made up different things with different groups about what these red crystals and totem are about. If you are have access to some of my maps, I know I share not just my maps but my source files, so people can edit the maps. Feel free to like take the red crystals out, or the chair, the throne here with the skeleton in it, if it doesn't fit your setting or story. But for me, I've just always used them as extra, like just improvised plot points for different groups. Normally they always have hostages here, so there's a cage here for any civilians. If you need to plug in maybe an NPC was kidnapped to get your players on this quest, then a cage here. A back area where a leader might sleep, blood soaked, with a large chest of coin And again, you can edit the maps. If you get in contact with me, I'll go ahead and share the source files so that you can edit maps if you don't want your players to have that much access to gold. But I give out a lot of gold and loot and rewards. But that's generally how I run this encounter here. Depending on which way they go, if my players end up going this way, which a lot of players do end up kind of just ignoring the noise that they hear and making it down this way, I'll have this area be what is normally a bit of a drop down, a steep drop down into just muck, an area where it's just like a cesspool, bodies floating in this nasty liquid. If your players go through there, feel free to hit them with some kind of disease, because that's definitely not utilized a lot in D&D. They got a sewer plague as one canon disease in D&D, so that would be very appropriate if your players even take too much damage down here from goblins. It would be make sense for that to happen. So these sleeping goblins here, how I've normally ran it, maybe a stealth check to get past them if the group just wants to see what's further in. And if you really want, I have this area tucked away that survivors might run to, or if it fits your table, maybe goblin children tucked away over here, whatever fits your table, your setting. But this is the overall of the map here. Again, if you want to edit certain things, maybe you want more rubble on the ground, less rubble, you want to add some bodies or something to really make this map fit the story that you're telling, then get in contact, support the Patreon. It'll be on there as well. Be part of the community. We're building something. So thank you for watching the video.